Okay, I have pasted the YouTube link for those who are having trouble on Zoom. You will be able to find us on YouTube as well. There is a live stream happening right there. Okay, so thank you all for your patience. Without any further ado, let's get started. Hope my voice is loud and clear. So before we get started, I'd like to introduce myself. I am Siddharth Nandakumar and I handle product marketing at Web Solutions Limited. I will also be your moderator for the day. So before we head forward, I'd like to take about 5 to 6 minutes on a quick company introduction. I'll keep it short and crisp. So Web is a 20-year-old company as of today. We were in fact part of Wipro. We were called Wipro e-Peripherals. So we were actually the peripherals and printer parts manufacturing side of Wipro. And in 2000, the company became an independent entity. So from there on, we have evolved over the years, and today we have multiple solution offerings where we've also plunged into the digital side of things, where we have digital transformation solutions, which I'll explain in the upcoming slides. So today we have multiple solution offerings. We have managed print services, which still remains to be our signature offering. We have digital transformation solutions where we have two different offerings: GST, that is for taxation side, and then we have DMS, that is document management. I'll give a little more briefing on this. And thirdly, we have Ricoh printers on offer. That is Ricoh Japan. We have their catalog of printers on offer as well. Okay, as you can see, a quick few pointers which will help you out to understand what exactly our solution is. Serial number one, we have managed print services. Now, the idea here is such that we offer printers on a pay-per-use model. That is, the customer will be charged per print. And we also handle their existing printer hardware, the printer network, and we'll also be able to add new printers over time. And we are, in fact, India's #1 MPS company. Serial number two, as I mentioned, we are Ricoh Japan's authorized distributor in India. So we have a wide range of MFPs, that is multifunction printers, and SFPs on offer. And we also undertake complete service and support on that end. Moving on to the digital side of things, serial number three covers GST. I'm sure all of you have heard of the term GST. We have an all-in-one one-stop solution for everything taxation that you require, right from filing, reconciliation. The platform also has various templates for your data preparation process. And we have close to 80 plus methodologies of validation built onto the platform. Aside this, we have modules built for e-way bill, e-invoicing, and we undertake most ERP integrations, that is SAP, Oracle, Microsoft Dynamics, Navision, and other custom API integrations. And lastly, we have a dedicated team in-house which will handle your GST filing requirements as well. Moving on. And now here we have the DMS solution. Now the idea here is very simple. We have a document management solution which works on the cloud or on-premise. Aside this, we have a workflow automation engine built onto the solution with which we are able to offer custom solutions or any existing process automation. I'm sure all of you are from the HR side today, most of them at least. So your HR processes on a day-to-day basis, which requires approvals, can be automated from our end. All your approvals in terms of any candidate onboarding process, everything can be automated from our end. So this is how our document management solution works. And we also have a digital signature solution. This works more like a contract management solution. And we also offer integration on this. A quick slide for you to understand what exactly our DMS solution is. I will leave this on for probably 30 seconds. Once again, I hope my voice is loud and clear. I do see a few inputs on the chat. Please keep it coming. A quick view of our customers. Moving on. Yeah. So these are our focused DMS clients. We have our process automation solutions, which are deployed in these places. MRF uses our procurement solution. We have our HR employee record solution deployed at Flipkart, PhonePe, and Omega Healthcare. All right, moving on. Once again, thank you all for your patience. So before I introduce our speaker and hand it over to him, I'd like to launch a quick poll, which would give me an understanding. Let me know if you're able to see this on your screen. Okay. So I'd like to know if our audience here are actually looking for a HR employee record solution, which we will be able to show you a short custom demo, a free demo of our solution based on our availability at a later stage. So I will leave this poll on for probably about a minute. Once again, I'd like to mention you can use the Q&A tab if you have any queries as the session progresses for the speaker. We'll be able to monitor that and we'll take up questions systematically. Okay. All right. I will end the poll right now. Thank you all for your inputs. Okay, let's move forward. Okay. So let me introduce our speaker, Mr. Ravi C Dasgupta. Mr. Ravi founded RCD HR Consulting in 2015, leveraging over 25 years of expertise in corporate HR to be a consultant for SMEs going through the pangs of growth by helping them evaluate the effectiveness of their HR systems and practices and to align their HR processes and systems fully with business imperatives. His focus is on comprehensive review of an organization's talent management strategy and revamping of HR systems and processes in areas such as talent acquisition and performance management. He also provides standalone HR consulting services in areas like coaching, employee surveys, 360-degree surveys, policy codification, organizational development, and facilitation of leadership development. Mr. Ravi has coached business leaders and high potentials in MNCs and Indian organizations. The company name RCD is a play on the name he was popularly known by since University at XLRI and stands for Research, Consulting, and Development. That is what RCD is. From the very beginning of his career, Mr. Ravi has had a penchant for spearheading HR at companies that are relatively small, but that have enormous potential to grow, seeing them as an opportunity for symbolic growth. His previous stints have been with companies like Goodlass, Nerolac Paints, Crompton Greaves, SmithKline Pharmaceuticals, and Allergan India. During his last corporate HR engagement, he was instrumental in elevating Biocon's human capital and processes during the period 2007 to 13 in the capacity of VP and Head Group HR Biocon. Under his watch, the group grew from 2,000 to 10,000 employees, during which time he put in place appropriately scalable HR enablers. His contribution to the HR field has been awarded with the Indira Super Achiever Award in 2003, the HR Leadership Award, Global HR Excellence Awards for the year 2008-2009, the Asia Pacific HR Congress in 2008, and the IPE HR Leadership Award in 2012. RCT is an associate facilitator with Think Talent Services and a certified coach of Think Coaching Consortium. Listed in the 10 most promising HR process service providers 2018 by Silicon India and was featured in their HR process special dated January 15, 2018. In November 2020, RCD HR Consulting was listed and featured among 10 most promising executive coaching companies by Silicon India. All right. So, audience, now that the corporate and the more serious side is over, let's bring in a little more lighter side before I think I've spoken enough, right? So let's quickly wrap it up with something on the lighter note. Mr. Ravi is never happier than when he is traveling. His life's passion being nature photography and being out on the open highway in his SUV and his bike. Mr. Ravi resumed motorcycling 2 years ago after a gap of close to 25 years. In June, that is June 2022, at the age of 57, he rode his Royal Enfield Bullet around Ladakh and down to Manali with some of his biking friends. He's also a frequent and respected speaker moderator at conferences on areas like leadership development, performance management, and talent acquisition. I take great pleasure in introducing him on our second webinar. I'm sure the audience is looking forward to directly hearing from you, sir. Thank you all for your patience. Over to you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Siddharth. It's always a little embarrassing to listen to that long introduction that comes, but I guess 25 years, yeah, so you have to say a few things.
Absolutely.
And you have to make people feel that it's worthwhile listening to someone.
That's true.
Okay, let's move on. So when we were talking about the agenda, Siddharth first asked me, okay, why don't you suggest what you would like to speak on? And I gave him some 2-3 suggestions, and then he came back with this one, that why don't we do this employer-employee relations, as it's the end of the year, and we can always build a good story around it. And frankly, when I started working on this, when I started thinking on this, I did realize that the last couple of years has certainly changed the dynamic over here. And there is definitely a need for us to look at the employer-employee relationship a little more closely than we used to earlier. Certainly, the changes that have happened in the world in the last couple of years has impacted how this relationship has developed. And perhaps there's also a need for us to even relook at this relationship and what are the elements of it. We'll also look at some things like what are the elements to build a relationship. And right at the end of the thing, of course, I'll go into a question and answer session where you're free to ask me any questions. We've already got a few, but I'm happy to take as many questions as come along until you guys get bored or Siddharth says, okay, enough is enough. I will get back to work. Okay. So let's start with the first question of why now? Why today? I think the last couple of years has really changed not just our lives, it's changed the way we work, and it's changed our expectations about both life and work. Perhaps, what happened in COVID was, apart from keeping us locked down in our houses for long periods of time, it gave us all a lot of time to introspect. And many of us realized that we'd been running around doing things, we've been very busy at work, but were we doing the things that we really wanted to do? And I think that time to introspect, which many of us had not had earlier, really gave rise to a lot of changes in people's expectations. Of course, organizations did a lot very quickly to adapt to the situation. Very quickly, most organizations were able to get people to work from home, and they did various things. They sent computers to people's houses. They did all sorts of things. And very soon, it was, work was going on. And then people got used to that. It was like, for many, many years, there was a particular way in which things were done. Most of us had to go to work every day. A few of us had the opportunity to work from home once in a while, but the majority of the people actually traveled physically to a particular destination, worked there, came back in the evening. And I think, this whole thing of how companies adapted to the COVID situation really changed the way work was being done. And today, some of those things that we used to take for granted, some of those things that rather we never used to challenge, some of those things that we thought were inevitable, that we just had to go through, we would we suddenly realize maybe that's not so necessary anymore. Like the assumption about needing to commute to work. I remember when I started off at Biocon, this is 2007. I had only two questions in my mind. My house was 25 kilometers from my office. Either A, I drove myself, which meant 1.5 hours while going, maybe a couple of hours while coming, or I had a driver who did that stuff and then he had to sleep in the office premises in the garage all day. And I really didn't want to do that to anyone. So for me, it was like, okay, there is no choice. I will drive. And I figured out what I could do to entertain myself while I drove to work and back. But that whole thing of, do I need to drive to work? That was not a question that ever came into my mind then. Today, when companies are asking people to come back to work, that is a question which people are definitely asking quite vocally. And because they have realized that, well, we have learned how to get around this. We've learned how to get around this requirement to come to a physical job location. And when I say this, it's not just work from home, but it's work from hometown. So I have in my apartment, most of the flats are 2-bedroom flats and some are 3-bedroom flats. Mine is actually a 2-bedroom on which I had attached. I'd got, when it was being built, I got a 3rd bedroom from the next flat. So that one became a 1-bedroom flat. And there was a friend of mine who used to stay there for a long time. Now he's moved to a bigger place and he had rented it out to a couple of IT kids who, once the lockdown thing happened, they went back to their hometown. Believe me, it's been 2 years plus. Those bikes are there, both their motorcycles are lying in the garage, totally covered in dust. And those guys are not coming back. And once or twice I asked my friend, why are those bikes still there? He said, no, they're paying me my rent. What do I do? So there are so many people who've actually moved. They're not just working from home, they're going back, they've gone back to their hometown. Some of them have actually, and I've seen it in my small office as well, because that's a very small building nearby, which is predominantly 1-bedroom flats. It's all bachelors and young ladies who go in 2-wheelers to work, office and stuff. And I saw in the last couple of years, almost every month, my landlord, or office lord, or whatever you would call it, keeps putting up notices of 1-bedroom flat for rent. Because more and more of them are actually deciding that, okay, what's the point of me being here? They've packed up lock, stock, and barrel, pushed back to their hometown. And if they have a decent internet, then they are able to work from there. So it's not work from home, it's actually work from hometown, which means you have no commute. Many people have actually sold their vehicles. And of course, you get your mother to cook food for you. What more can you get? What more can you ask for? So there are those massive advantages that nobody really wants to give away. And that's why when corporates are trying to get people to come back to work, they aren't pushing too hard, because they are realizing that there is still plenty of options for people to continue with this working from hometown kind of situation. And therefore, if they push too hard, the guys would just simply leave them. So this entire thing about remote working, it has definitely weakened the relationships that existed between employees and employers earlier, who used to meet regularly. Now they hardly do it. And then there are so many others who have joined the roles in the last couple of years, maybe who've never physically come to the workplace at all. And therefore, whatever their interactions have been in terms of online virtual meetings and stuff like that. In fact, just last week I was in Palakkad doing some consulting with a client of mine, and I was doing work with his HR team, and many of them were actually meeting for the first time, because some of them, of course, were old timers who had been with the company for a long time, but there were several who had joined in the last couple of years and had not physically met their co-workers until then. So definitely this is a reason why it is important for us to look at relationships, because remote relationships versus in-person relationships are definitely two different things, and you need to figure out how to make that remote relationship work as well. Siddharth? Yeah. So why do we need to have mutually beneficial relationships at work? Why is it, there was a time when if a company took somebody on board and they said like, okay, I'm giving you a job, I'm giving you an opportunity to grow this brand and be associated with the growth, and people would be so kicked about that opportunity. I think nowadays those days are long gone. People are much more concerned about themselves. They really want to know, okay, that's fine for your brand. That's perhaps fine for you on the board of the company. That's fine for you if you are the managing director or the CEO, but what's in it for me? And many people are beginning to think, that, okay, I mean, where am I getting my share of this? So you can manage people so far. There is how much you can do by control, how much you can do by monitoring people, how much you can do by telling them what to do is limited. And in the end, what you need to do is really leverage the experience of people, leverage the knowledge of people, leverage maybe even their optimism, leverage their inclination, leverage their enthusiasm. And that's really where it calls for leadership. It calls for people who are able to unleash the talent of the people rather than channelize it or try to channelize it. Because when you are managing people, you are not giving them a free hand. You are not giving them the freedom to choose what to do and how to do it. And they will work as per their instructions. They finish what they've been told to do and they sit down. Whereas if you are able to lead people, if you are able to inspire people, you'll find that you'll have a very different kind of situation. The second point I had is about have you ever wondered what your team is up to when you're away? And this often came to my mind when I used to travel on work. Sometimes, especially if you were traveling abroad, traveling locally is still okay, but when you're traveling abroad, people know, okay, he's not going to come back this week. So what do they do when you're not around? And I think the best thing you can really do is not try to micromanage them, but rather to, if you are able to get them to buy into what is it that we are trying to do, if there is a shared purpose, if they have a common goal as you, then people are working because they take ownership. They do things because they want to do it. They do things because they have something that they want to achieve. And you'll find that whether you're physically there or not, it really doesn't make a difference. They continue to put in their efforts. So today, I think more and more we find that an organization has to not just look at what it gets out of the people, but really what it is giving back. There has to be a quid pro quo. There has to be, it's a two-way street. You have to give and receive. It's not really 100% equal giving and receiving, but both sides have to really do as best as they can. And unless we are able to help our employees achieve their personal goals, unless we are able to help them move towards where they want to go, to approach the direction they want to reach, the goals they want to reach in life, we'll find that at some point of time, they get disconnected, they get disoriented, they get disillusioned, and they pack their bags and push off. In fact, another thing that I've seen in the last couple of years is that more and more this gig economy thing is becoming very, very prevalent. There was a time when, if people asked you, what do you do? And if you're not working for some big name, they would sort of look down on you and feel that, I mean, poor guy, he's not getting a good job. He has to do some small little thing by himself. But today, I find there are so many people who work in the gig economy. I mean, my daughter has worked for 3 months in a formal job. Since then, she works from home. She builds websites. She does marketing collaterals. She does social media marketing for her clients. And she has a very busy life. She does her work. She goes on holidays. In fact, today she sent me some pictures from Puducherry, where she's learning surfing. So, and I mean, that's all that you really want. Today, she says that she's earning as much as many of her peers who went and studied abroad, did some fancy degrees, and worked abroad for some time, come back to India. And she says, I'm earning as much as them, but I'm doing my own thing, and I am my own boss. And that, I think, is something which we need to understand about the millennials, that they need to have that authority. They need to have ownership of what they do. So even in your organizations, you have to give them freedom to choose what they are doing. So to retain our best, and that's really my bottom line here, to retain our best talent, we need leaders, not managers. And if you don't have good relationships, then clearly it's a failure of leadership, because it is happening because people are not empowering the team. People are not being able to get them to buy into the big picture, and therefore they gradually get disillusioned from what they want to do. Siddharth? Okay, so this is what I'm trying to get at over here is, we all have the written contract, the appointment letter, the employee agreement, all that stuff, which is very legalistic. But human beings don't always really operate that way. Human beings operate based on relationships. And what really holds the employer and employee together is an unwritten contract, which is really, there is certain expectations that the employers have. There are certain expectations that the employees have. And it's like you have a convex lens in the middle that is helping to converge the two beams and bringing them together to make an image. I think that is really what modern work is all about. That how do we bring together the expectations of the employers and the expectations of the employees? So I'd like you to do a little bit of stuff in the chat box. Type in some expectations that you think employers have today. What are the expectations that employers have? Go ahead.
Okay, audience, all right.
Loyalty, achieving organization results. Very good. Keep going.
Work from office.
Timely deliveries, definitely. Yes. What are the other expectations? High quality work. Superb. Okay. What are the expectations that you think employees' commitment? Okay. Good. We've got a good number, and I think you all could go on much more. What are some of the expectations that the employees have? On-time delivery, work done punctually, meaningful work. Okay. Let's talk with the employer. Let's have some expectations that employees bring to the workplace. Meaningful work, work-life balance.
Okay. That
Very
is,
good.
yeah, one of the most primary ones, I believe. Okay.
Higher
Sponsored employment.
education, work-life balance. Work-life balance is very popular on a
Absolutely.
Wednesday afternoon. Growth, growth, supportive, pay, appreciation, recognition, trust,
Learning,
learning, flexible, fabulous. Okay, you guys are too good.
employee benefits to be heard. Okay,
Lovely,
great.
lovely. This
Yeah.
is really good. Great. Okay, so so what happens is that the employee comes into the organization with dreams. He has heard about this organization. He perhaps has spoken to some people who has worked there. He's heard the pep talk that they've told him about what all they're going to do for him. And he comes in with full of hopes and dreams. Now, when the rubber hits the road is really when they join the company, they finish all that induction program and they report for work in their department. And that's when they really begin to slowly realize what is it actually like over here. And if there is too much of dissonance between what the pep talk on the one hand and what they actually experience, they'll find that you know, this is not really what I was expecting. Maybe I'm not going to get what I was hoping for from this organization. So what I want to say here is like both sides have expectations, and I think both sides need to realize that. It can't be just I, me, myself. I have my expectations, they need to be met. I also have to deliver on the expectations of the other side. Both sides have to be fully aware of this and that it is a give and take. There is a transaction that has to take place. Both sides have to support one another. Both sides have to complement one another. And like we saw with somebody talking about the work from home thing, maybe there is a need for there are some changed expectations of the employees. Perhaps when they started working a few years ago in your organization, they weren't expecting to, they didn't say, I want to work from home. But today, having experienced it, maybe they do want to. And there may be a need for us to actually relook at some of the expectations and reevaluate them. So, Siddharth, can we go on to the next slide? Yeah. So a lot of the companies today, I think, are feeling a bit like Santa Claus, where he has Rudolph, perhaps with the red nose. So it must be Rudolph going there as the leader of the group and saying that they want to work from home. And clearly, that's something that's not going to work for Santa. And there are, I think, different organizations are in different situations on this. There are some who can happily continue this way. There are some who can continue not so happily. And there are some who are definitely hurting. And the ones who are hurting really have to take a call of how long am I going to avoid that discussion? At some point of time, I need to make things clear. And some people will stay and some people will go. I think that's the inevitable fallout of this situation. But you realize that okay, there are people have got used to that gig economy kind of situation. People have got used to doing stuff from home, and of course, there are also people who have misused it. We saw a few months ago, Wipro had terminated some 300 people who were caught doing dual employment. I think some PF records or something showed that they were actually employed in a couple of places. But there are so many who don't actually work formally into organizations, but they moonlight apart from their regular job. And therefore, companies sometimes feel that, I'm not getting my full, I'm not getting the full worth of having that employee when he is not physically at my office. And therefore, many of them are now looking at ways of how they can bring them back to the workplace. But there, there is a need for the company to really look at what is our current situation. Is it something that works for us? Is it something that doesn't work for us? If it doesn't work for us, what are we going to do about it? And somewhere or the other, they have to bell the cat. They have to take the call and uh, resolve the situation. You can't just live in a state of flux for too long. Yeah. Siddharth. Okay, now this is a bit of home truth, but this is something that I realized first when I was in my corporate avatar, that before I could do anything as a HR head, I needed to actually build relationships with my key stakeholders, and perhaps not only the key stakeholders, but with other people in the department, other people in the organization, and all that. So building relationships became a key focus. But when I got out of corporates and started my own consulting work, I frankly thought that, okay, like you heard when Siddharth was introducing me, I really wanted to do work with a lot of SMEs, and that was not my constituency really in my corporate days. So I went into LinkedIn and I saw, I got now about 35,000 odd people I'm connected with. But I looked at, various smaller companies who I thought these are the kind of people I'd like to work with. And I reached out to them and I tried to talk to them. I tried to call them. I tried to send them my brochure. And after some time, I realized it just didn't work. Because business comes from word of mouth. Business comes because of relationship. After about 8 years, I just stopped doing any kind of BD activity. So if I don't have any work, I enjoy myself. I ride my bike, I go to my farmhouse, I go on a holiday, I do whatever. And I find that suddenly out of the blue, somebody will call me and say, Ravi, I have this work for you. It'll be somebody who's a ex-colleague of mine, somebody who I've done work with before, or someone who I know, who knows me well, refers me to somebody else who has a requirement. Like this Palakkad thing that I went to last week. A friend of mine who now runs a wedding venue in Bangalore. He used to be an IT techie, and a friend of his is now the IT techie, is an IT techie still, but now running his own company in Palakkad. And he sort of spoke to that guy, and that guy said, listen, we are looking at growing 3 times, and I think I need some HR consulting. And this chap said, okay, I know just the person for you. So that's how business comes for me these days. And that's how business comes for everyone. It's all about relationships. And similarly, when it comes to getting work done from an employee, it's about relationship. It's not just that, okay, I'm paying you your salary, you better do what is expected, work hard, deliver on time, all that stuff that we saw from employer expectations a little earlier. It's not necessarily that, just because I'm paying the salary, I have to get all that. There has to be a relationship so that we are able to influence people to do things without using authority, without using power, without using position. And you will find when you use that influence rather than authority, you'll find that you are having much more impact. You'll find that you're able to do much more in terms of being able to get them to achieve what you want to do. Next slide. So where does this employee engagement really come from? I think it comes from a sense of contribution. When people realize that how does my work contribute to the goals, the output, the what the company does? How does my work help achieve that? That's when you feel engaged. If I think back, to when I joined Biocon in 2007, in the first week, Kiran had called me across to her office, and she told me, and those days we were about 2,000 people. It was a small company just moving away from industrial enzymes. And she told me, I want you to help me build a world-class company. That was my brief. Help me build a world-class company. But that gave me a sense of purpose, that gave me engagement, that kept me going for 7 long years of lots of ups and downs in that organization. But it came because I had that, I felt that what I was doing was adding value to the organization. So if you can get people to buy into the vision, if you can get them to feel that what they are doing really makes a difference, it has much more impact, than all those uh, calling people to a conference room, doing some fun activities for a little while and calling that employee engagement. Frankly, that's not employee engagement. Employee engagement comes when people see a link between their work and what the company is doing. So figure out how you can make that linkage clear and apparent to people and help them to make the best of that. So true engagement comes from a sense of co-creation, co-ownership, and that helps you to build the long-term commitment. Okay, so by inculcating self-worth, we help employees achieve their true potential. Next slide, Siddharth.
Yeah. So before we head to the next slide, can we launch a poll which would anyway lead on to that
You are
slide?
the boss. You can do anything.
All right. Okay. So audience, let me know if you're able to see this on your screen. Just give me a minute. Okay. All right. So please note this is a multiple choice question, so you can select multiple options. What are the prerequisites to a strong relationship? There are the options that are here. Again, I'd like to mention you can select one or more. Let's leave this on for the next 1 minute, followed by which Mr. Ravi will anyway add on to this. Audience, good to see the inputs which came in quite quickly. So we would also like to see questions. I'm sure you do have questions based on whatever is covered so far. So please use the Q&A or the chat. All right. Okay. Okay. Based on mutual trust and respect, know and understand your employees' career aspirations. Okay. So these two are chart toppers. Okay. 34 responses. Okay. Interesting.
Not bad out of 47 people.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and I suppose some might have responded multiply. Yeah.
Yeah. That is also there. Correct. Okay. Okay. Good to see this. I will anyway share this on the screen. Before I head forward to the next slide, Mr. Ravi, if you'd like to add something onto this.
No. So let's see the slide because the slide largely contains some of these things anyway.
Okay. Done. Yeah. I'll let me take this off. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I thought, when we're talking about relationships, then let's look at what really is a prerequisite to building that strong relationship. And I think first and foremost comes mutual trust and respect. Because if one doesn't trust one another, if one doesn't respect one another, then frankly, you don't really have a relationship. Yeah. So that's the basis, and it's important that we do things to maintain that trust, to maintain that respect, and show respect to one another. Knowing and understanding each other, again, I think it's also a very important thing, because especially when you look at your team, you will find you have some people who are out and out stars. You'll find some others who are not brilliant, but they are determined, they are dogged, they will not give up. And in a team, you should have space for all kinds. Because in different situations, different kinds of skill sets, different kinds of attitudes, different kinds of mindsets are important. So you need different types of people, and you need to understand which one of my team is what. Who are the bright guys who have the ideas, who are the people who are very good at implementation. And you frankly need both kinds in any good team. Open and honest communication, I think this is extremely critical, especially today. And I saw some of the questions that came up about uh, building relationships in the current situation where companies themselves are sometimes in a bit of trouble. Uh, when there is a possibility of retrenchment, what do you do? Well, you have to be open and honest in your communication. I think if see, because your employee understands this situation is not of your doing. They understand that a lot of factors are coming together. We are all expecting a global slowdown to hit us any point of time. And it's sooner or later, all these things are going to come into play. But rather than keep your employees in the dark, pretending everything is fine, and then suddenly one day you come and uh, start spraying out pink slips left and right. Instead of that, if you let them know, okay, we are going through hard times. If you would like to look out, go ahead and do so. I think that's a much more humane way to handle the situation, where you give them an opportunity to exit with dignity. You give them an opportunity to look for alternatives rather than suddenly one day get caught by surprise when you suddenly realize, okay, I can't handle this anymore. It's time for me to get rid of some of you. We need to empower our employees rather than we need to we need to empower employees. We cannot micromanage them. The more we give them freedom, the more we give them accountability, the better and better they will produce. They will exceed and surpass your expectations, provided you give them that freedom to show you what they can do. And very often, I've had people who came back to me when I have sort of entrusted them, empowered them, and they came back and said, frankly, I didn't know I could do this, but you believed in me, and therefore I did it. I tried to do it, and lo and behold, it's happened. So empowering is really, really very important. In the poll, very few of you thought that the robust recognition program was important. I think it is, because especially when you have your key performers, the top performers, the ones who are really contributing hard, it's not just about the reward mechanism that you have in place. I think frequent recognition and having a method of recognizing people, and it need not be any great formal thing, but letting people know that their work is appreciated, is seen, is valued. I think that really makes a big difference. That when you feel that what I'm doing here makes a difference, people rely on me and people value my contribution, that makes a huge difference to people. So from that perspective, I'm talking about a recognition program. I think it's very important, especially when you have people who've been with you for a few years, that you understand what their career aspirations are. In my career, I used to do it with my entire HR team. So, and I would encourage all people to do it with their team members. You may not always be able to make those aspirations come about for those people, but you can certainly help them prepare for it. You can help them, and sometimes you can give them certain opportunities which will certainly help them move in the direction that they want to go. So, and that's when you're doing that, when you're then people feel that, okay, I have a future in this organization, that something will happen for me over here. I can trust the management to take care of me and take care of my needs as I go along. Okay. So you need to spend time with people's career aspirations and not just a casual conversation during the performance appraisal. And of course, make a honest attempt to fulfill them to whatever extent you can. So my bottom line here is, how good a relationship is, you will never know it in the good times. It's only when situation is tough, and like I think today is a tough situation for many of us. It's that time when really, do I have a good, strong relationship with my employee or not? So the relationships are always tested in times of stress, in times when there is trouble, in times when there is pressure. And it is only at such times you'll find that some people will stand up and do whatever it takes, do whatever is needed, and some others will jump off the bus. So you realize very soon in such times that who are the people who you really need to keep around with you and keep them in the organization. Yes, Siddharth.
Okay. So before I head forward to the next slide, possibly coming to the end of a presentation, let me launch one more poll. Okay. Now that we've spoken about prerequisites, what are the possible elements to build a strong relationship? Again, these points will be explained in the next slide, but let us know your thoughts. Once again, multiple choice options over here. So I will leave this on for the next 1 minute. Audience, I did see one question on the chat. I'd like to see a few more. Also, let me also mention that those who would like to directly interact with Mr. Ravi, please let me know. I will be able to allow that as well, where you'll be able to unmute and talk. Okay. Be flexible and help them achieve a healthy work-life balance. Okay. Looks like it somehow somehow circulates to that. It all leads to that. Okay, 25 responses. Okay, let's get it to 35, 37, somewhere on that, audience. Can you help? Can you help us out? We still have 49 people here. 29 responses. Can we get it to 35 at least? 29. 6 more responses, and then I'll close the poll. Okay, still at 29. Okay, 30. Okay. All right, 4 more. Okay. Okay. You know what? Well tried. Let me end the poll here. Okay, 32. Okay, not bad at all. Let me just quickly share the results and move to the next slide. Okay. So, sir, you'd like to explain? I'll take this off. Let me stop sharing. Yeah.
Great. Yeah. So, I mean, there's no rocket science in this slide, and we've actually, I think you've all applied your mind while you were answering the poll. So, what I think I need to say over here is, see, we all know what is to be done. The secret is really, or the skill is really how well you do it. And it's all about the implementation. It's all about, because like they say, tali ek haath se nahi bajti, na? So both parties have to contribute towards it. So both sides have to share equally. And if you are able to make that the right gestures, if you are able to set off the relationship on the right note, if you are able to keep that relationship going in a positive way, you will often find that people will reciprocate to you. But clearly, in today's world, the employees are thinking much more about themselves. They are valuing their time, their work, their contribution much more. Their expectations are definitely getting higher and higher. And they've realized that there are options. So you need to be very clear about what is it that you want from them, what is it that you can give them, and maybe how can you help them to move towards their ultimate goals and aspirations, right? And especially when it comes to dealing with the millennials, I think it's a slightly different ballgame from the older lot. This one, they are sometimes like a bit like a soda water bottle, like you open it and psh, it'll all come out. Lots of enthusiasm, but it dissipates. You have to keep giving them a new challenge. You give them something to work on, they enjoy doing it. After some time, it becomes boring. You have to give them something else. And similarly, you have to keep your finger on the pulse of your employees. Your ESAT results you have to know exactly what's going on. You have to, and even whatever you're doing in terms of employee engagement, monitor the success of that, ensure that it's actually meeting what these people are expecting. But like I said, there's nothing much to explain over here. It's not about knowledge. We all know all this stuff. It's about how you do it and the genuineness with which you do it, which creates the warmth from the other side as well. Go ahead, Siddharth.
Okay, moving on to the next slide. Yeah.
So this is really my summing up slide. It's really got all the bullets from the previous slides. We talked about why is now so important for us to build relationships and maybe to even revisit the relationships. And to discuss what is it that you as an employer expect from the company, from the individuals, and likewise, what is it that the employees expect from the organization. We talked about how relationships are the bedrock on which everything works. We talked about the sense of contribution, which really leads to employee engagement, and how do you build that sense of contribution. We talked about how a relationship has to be mutually beneficial in order to actually be useful for you and the organization. We talked about prerequisites for a good employee-employee relationship, and then we talked about some elements to build a strong relationship. So this was really what I wanted to cover in the presentation so far. We can also, so that's what has happened.
Yeah, if you're still able to see my screen, right, sir?
No, now it's come back.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, you can move to the next one. So what I wanted to do at the end of it is that we will have, Siddharth has his demo that he will take us through now. And after that, we will have, again, Siddharth, again, the screen has partly vanished, but never mind. After that, we'll have a Q&A session. My LinkedIn contacts are also there if anybody wants to reach out to me. I try to write on LinkedIn. I don't write as often as I should, but maybe every quarter or every half year at least I put out an article. So if you liked how I speak, then you may like how I write, because I write much shorter and to the point than I talk.
I've actually pasted the link on the chat for those who would like to directly go to his profile. Yeah, you can just click on the link.
Yeah. So with that, I think it's time for me to say thank you very much for listening to me so patiently. And I'm glad to see hardly some 4 people have dropped out, which is
Yeah.
really a good record on a webinar on a working day afternoon.
Absolutely.
Stay along. We have question and answers at the end.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
audience, what we're going to do right now is, now that you've heard Mr. Ravi's presentation, I'm sure you have some questions, and those who would like to interact with him directly, I will be able to do that as well. But you will have to spare me about 10 minutes where I will be able to quickly show you a short demo of what our solution is that I'd explained earlier. Something that most of you guys will be able to relate to, that is candidate onboarding automation. That's what I'm going to run you through. So you will have to spare me about 10 minutes time, and we will get back to questions with Mr. Ravi. Okay, so I hope all of you are seeing my screen. So what are the most common known challenges as a HR to you when it comes to employee records management? Let us talk one specific challenge, that is one specific HR challenge. Let's not take on the whole, that is employee records management. What are the challenges that you think are possible challenges according to you? Can we use the chat for this? So one such challenge that I think is, obviously, as you see on the screen, that is there's a good chance of records going missing, right? For instance, you're getting records over mail, or let's take it even more traditional, where the candidate just comes over to the workplace and hands over the physical document to the HR. So there's a good chance that you will misplace it, maybe not immediately or over a time. It could be years. And for sure, there'll be a back and forth where you'll have to go and try and relocate that document, right? So what are the other possible challenges that you think are when it comes to employee records management? Audience, can we have some inputs from your end? So as I mentioned, tracking missing employee docs. Anything else? Employee records management. I think one other thing is organizing, right? Organization of documents is definitely a challenge. Imagine, let's say there's a company with only about 100 employees, but at 100 employees, each employee might have about 10 documents, right? So that can also be challenging. But what about companies that have close to 10,000 or 20,000 employees? Right? There's an obvious challenge there. Okay, I see some audience who have raised their hand. If there is something, please let me know, Mr. Rajendra. Okay, Ms. Chetna says retention of potential star performers. Okay. All right. Okay, fine. Let me move forward. So these are some of the challenges that our solution actually primarily solves. Some specific challenges, as you can see, will help you track missing records with our dashboards, with our reports, customizable reports. Then we have something called a partner space, which enables the HR to communicate in order to collaborate with their vendor, that is background verification team. Okay, instead of having to do it over mail and you having the risk of privacy, right? That's an obvious risk that can be solved with our one-stop solution. Then as you know, you have so many documents. There's a you will obviously have to try and relocate one specific document. How do you do that? If there is a good search and retrieval engine built onto the solution, with various filters. For example, you can search with a file name, you can search with a folder name. Let's assume you can search with an employee ID being a parameter. These are some of the things that will help you narrow down your search to seconds. Okay, data security, absolutely. That is also a concern, right? Absolutely. So I'm happy to tell that our solution is AES 256-bit encrypted. So we have this industry standard encryption, which addresses data security as a challenge. And lastly, we have automation, which is what I'm going to show you in the next few minutes. Okay, a quick slide for you. Our solution also has an inbuilt cloud repository wherein you'll be able to store your documents, that is employee records, or not just employee records, you can store your personal records as well. and we will be able to offer folder structure based on your request. Okay, and this is the automation end. So we have a workflow designer built onto the solution. I'm sure some of you would have already seen designers like this, where you'll be able to simply drag and drop elements onto the designer, with which you will be able to design the flow itself. Okay, now this is a quick candidate onboarding process workflow, which I'll run you through. Should take about 5 minutes. So first, the offer letter is generated once you've selected the candidate, followed by which the candidate will have to respond saying if he or she is accepting the offer letter, and then you will have to obviously request the candidate to send out his or her documents, right? What are the possible documents? Aadhaar card, PAN card, marks cards, right? And if the candidate has already worked elsewhere, previous employment documents as well. So these are some of the common documents that need to be shared from the candidates into the HR. Finally, you have a HR review, and lastly, you store it. So let's see how we can automate this. Okay, let me just stop sharing and quickly go to my browser. All right, let me know if you're able to see my screen, audience. A quick yes or no would be great on the chat so that I can move forward. Audience, yes, no. Sir, you're able to see my screen, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, so this is our platform, guys. This is our solution. This is a lock screen. Then let me just quickly log in with the credentials. Once you're done, you're greeted by these tiles, a quick tile view. Let me get into workflow. Now, assume that I am the HR. As I had mentioned, the simple workflow. I am the HR. My candidate is ready. I'm happy with the candidate. I'm going to onboard the candidate. How do I do that? Traditional ways of doing it, I can send out a mail. The candidate will come back to me with the mail response saying, yes, I accept. And he or she will attach the documents, right? Gone are the traditional ways. Let us see how automation can be done over here. So I'm going into this workflow module. Then I click on workflow over here and I search for something called candidate onboarding V2. Now this is a demo workflow, but this should give you a fair idea of how the solution works. Now let's click on this and let us onboard this candidate by name Ritika. Okay, Ritika Kumar. And I will use a dummy mail ID for my purposes. And let me upload the offer letter, which is also going to be a dummy offer letter. Give me a minute. Let me just quickly upload. All right. And offer letter is good to go. Once this is attached, it is done here. You can add other fields. For example, if you have a date of birth field that is required, that can be done. Fully customizable. Let me go ahead and send it out. So my work as a HR is done. Now let me go back to Gmail. Let me just log in quickly. Now this is a dummy account that I'm using here. And once I'm logged in, now assume that I'm Ritika, who is the candidate. I'm waiting for the mail received from the HR. So this is the mail. Please note all of this that you're seeing might look confusing right now, but these can be modified. So the offer letter is sitting right here. I need to simply get into this link over here. Once I click on this, I am redirected to this form that you're seeing right here. So this is the form. The details that HR, that is me, entered is being viewed by Ritika now. Now the offer letter is here. How do you look at the offer letter? It's right here. Click on the documents. You'll be able to view the offer letter. This is a dummy offer letter. You will also be able to download it quickly if required. So this is how simple it is. Now let us go ahead and enter the details requested. One is documents requested. What are the possible documents? There's a checklist as well. Aadhaar, PAN, degree, previous employee documents, so on and so forth. I hope you got an idea. Now let's go ahead and enter the Aadhaar number. I'll give a dummy Aadhaar number, A, D, G, something like this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. And I will also give a PAN number, BIQPN 5412P. Okay. And let's upload the documents. Okay. Once this is done, I will quickly upload the documents, Aadhaar, degree, marks, medical certificate, and PAN and photo. I think this should suffice. Once this is done, my job as Ritika, that is the candidate, is over. I have entered all the fields. I'm good to go. I will complete the task. If required, I can download the offer letter and I'll keep it with me. So now Ritika's job is done. And let's go back as a HR. Again, I log into the platform on another day and I get into workflow. Instead of getting into workflow, I simply click on tasks. Okay. I have a task that is in progress. So whatever pending tasks will be sitting right here. Let me click on candidate onboarding V2. That's it. As soon as I open, I see the name, the mail ID, and the Aadhaar and PAN number that were typed in by Ritika. And you might also ask me where are the documents. Simple. We get into this. We'll be able to see all the dummy documents that were uploaded by Ritika. So you can also get a download option, but for the time being, we only have a view option here. But this can be downloaded as well. You also have a history tab which shows you when the task was initiated, when did Ritika complete, when am I going to complete. You can add comments. Let's assume a company that is a little more bigger will have multiple HRs to approve, right? There might be a HR executive, there might be a HR manager, there might be a HR director. All of them are involved in the HR approval cycle. All of them will have to approve. That can also be customized here. So what you're seeing right now is our workflow. It is just showing you where the task is pending. That is at the HR end. So now let's go back to this window and I will go ahead and quickly enter some details. Once I'm okay with the documents, I can simply click on these things, the checklist and employee number. This can be auto-generated if requested from the customer end. For now, it's not. So let me give employee EMPLY and I will give Bangalore as the region, EMPLYBLR and 444. I think this should be fine. And we will also give Bangalore as the location. Once I'm good, I can simply approve. That's it. The candidate has been onboarded. Now you will also question me where the documents are sitting. I will show you that as well in a minute. So now that workflow is done, we'll get into projects. Once we get into projects, I need to get into this, that is new test. Please note all of this is only for dummy demo purposes only. This can be done up based on customer request. Based on how you would like it, we'll be able to do it. So get it the new test and employer records and the location being Bangalore. And we will have to wait probably for a few seconds as the system refreshes and the folder has been created. It is right here, EMPLY BLR 444. This is exactly what I created. Modified on December 21, 2022. All the files that were sent in by Ritika are sitting right here. Everything that were accepted in the previous stage have been uploaded. And I can also go ahead and show you the detailing by right-clicking. As soon as I do that, you can see the employee name, employee mail ID, Aadhaar, PAN, branch location, employee number. These are basically metadata which are automatically tagged to each and every file once approved. So this is how our candidate onboarding works. Very fast and snappy method. There are obviously many other things to the solution which I will not be able to show because of time constraints. So I hope you got a flavor of how our platform works. Like this, we will be able to basically build any kind of requirement that you have. So let me go back to the slide. And now that the demo is done, we can take up questions. Audience, thank you all for being really patient. I see that the dropout percentage isn't a lot, even with the demo. Thank you all for your patience. And thank you, Mr. Ravi, for coping up as well. So we can take up questions now. And as I mentioned, as I dropped a poll earlier for those who wanted a demo, those of you who were interested, who stuck back and looked at our solution, the ones we will reach out to at a later stage and we will be able to discuss further if there is a customer request. So let me hand it over to Mr. Ravi with the questions now. Audience, the questions, the space is open for you now. We can take up questions.
Yeah, Siddharth, I'll first deal with those first three, four
sure,
things
sir.
that had come before.
Sure.
Yeah,
yeah, absolutely.
The first one was how do you build a strong relationship so goals are met? I think, frankly, the entire presentation was more or less geared around that. So
right, yeah.
Take that as answered. Remote setup is the second question, and I think that was not specifically dealt with. So remote setups definitely pose a challenge. Building relationships when people are working remotely is going to be difficult. And you must have at least a quarterly kind of interaction where you get people together, get them to spend a day or two together, do things together, And only then those relationships will build. There is frankly no way out of it. There is no other way it can happen. But otherwise, if you don't do that, if you don't invest in relationships, you'll find that when the chips are down, you'll suddenly find that there's nobody around to help you. So you have to figure out a way of how, even in a remote working environment, how do you get people together from time to time, maybe once a quarter, once in 6 months, whatever it is. But you'll have to bring them together from time to time so that they get to know one another, they get to bond with one another, because that's the only way that people can work together. Third question was about manufacturing industry. So frankly, uh, my entire career was manufacturing industry, though now in consulting, I do a lot of work with services and all that. But manufacturing was the core with which I worked for 25 years. So everything I said was definitely based on my experience of manufacturing in this industry. And I think manufacturing industry is a very touchy-feely kind of place, and you have to be hands-on. You have to get it connected with people a lot. And again, everything I talked about in that presentation was absolutely 100% applicable to manufacturing industry. And Dipti had some questions about her having worked in a small organization, and when
Right.
she goes in for interviews, uh, because she's worked in small places, the larger ones find that it's difficult. The larger ones are not considering her. See, frankly, Dipti, I don't think that's the issue, because if that was so, they would not have called you for the interview in the first place. So, and also, I have worked in small companies, I've worked in large companies. I don't think there's such a dramatic difference in what you do between the two. I think the core concepts are the same, the kind of behaviors that are required are the same. In fact, if anything, a small company gives you an opportunity to play on a broader canvas. So you're a big fish in a small pond, as against if you're in a big company, you'll be a small fish in a big pond. So I really don't think that the fact that you're coming from a small company is the issue. Maybe you've not been able to present what exactly you've done as well to those people who you've interviewed with. Okay. Then Raj talked about uh, employee employee relationships in difficult times, and when there is retrenchment and all that. And I did address it while we were going through the presentation. Basically, I said that, see, you have to be open, you have to be transparent. Don't catch people by surprise. Give them adequate warning, and give them a little bit of support. 2-3 months of time. Give them to, like, even if you decided I have to get rid of them, give them that adequate warning. Tell them that, okay, you need to find something in this time. And I've invariably found, that people, even when an organization lets them go, I've I've always found that guys go and get a far better job than what they were doing earlier. And you wonder, wow, I mean, have we not seen him? Have we not recognized his talent or what? Because invariably they do so much better. So it's just about giving them that support while they go out and search for something, so that in the end, they have given you some years of their life. They have worked hard for you. Don't um, don't pull the plugs suddenly. Give them time to find an alternative. Yeah, so that's it as far as the questions that I already had. If there are any more questions.
Yeah. So there is, I think Deepthi had a question again, but it was most likely the same, I believe, sir. So that's fine.
No, the one that was written in the Q&A, I have, it was the
Uh,
same one. I replied to that.
right. Okay. Yeah, I just saw it, sir. We have one from Mr. Sandeep on the Q&A again. What's your view on online continuing education for employees to create learning environment and engage employees through skill development? Something like work integrated learning. Does this really help in retention in MNCs?
So as long as the learning is something which people see as significant, something which they see as adding value to them, it will definitely help for retention. But beyond the online education or classroom learning or any kind of that kind of learning, I think it's the development that happens on the job that is important. If people feel that they're learning, that they're developing skills, that their abilities are preparing them for the future, that they are getting more, getting closer to where they want to be in life, I think that is what will really help. As long as they feel that I'm on the right track, the company is helping me, I have a future, I have growth over here, they will stay with you. It is only when they feel that, okay, nothing is happening for me over here, I'm wasting my time, it's about, I need to cut my losses and go somewhere else. I think that's when they will need to, that they would start looking elsewhere. So definitely learning of any kind is good. Development is still better.
Okay, Mr. Sandeep, I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, Adres, you can unmute yourself and
Yeah, absolutely. As I mentioned on chat, since we are almost closing in on the session, we have in fact extended by 30 minutes because our audience were definitely interactive and engaging. Also, thanks to a very good presentation for holding it. The main reason being that.
in
So,
fact, I must confess, yesterday I actually told Siddharth, listen, I'm not well, let's
yeah.
postpone this. And he said, no, no, sir, let's see. If you're feeling better tomorrow, you do it. So only yesterday afternoon, I started putting slides together. I
Right.
finished it middle of the night, but it's, I think, come out fairly well.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. So as I mentioned, audience, if there's anyone who has direct questions for Mr. Ravi, please let me know. You can either raise your hand with that feature or you can just type on chat saying yes. I will be able to unmute and you can directly interact with him right away. And do we have anyone? Anything. It can be any, it doesn't have to be specifically to the topic, anything HR related, uh, anything on the organizational level. Mr. Rajendra, I did see your hand being raised. Would you like to interact with Mr. Ravi?
Raj, incidentally, is an old friend of mine. Huh?
Oh,
We,
okay,
we are
okay,
colleagues in Biocon.
okay. Mr. Damodaram would like to. I'll just allow him.
Yeah.
And yeah, you should be able to unmute, sir. Go ahead.
Hey, hi, good afternoon, both, and fellow colleagues.
Yeah.
Sir,
Hello,
I
sir.
just wanted, I know that everywhere these layoffs are happening. So, will the law, by nature of law, will this not condemn anything? No, I know that the kind of when we go by appointment letter concept and stuff like that, employer will have a right to give the notice period or pre-intimation and get them kicked off. Okay, but from an employee standpoint, will it not be a kind of any act or something which would protect this us?
Unfortunately, sir, as I see it, the labor laws are getting more and more diluted over time. In fact, I know states like UP, they've actually passed legislation which suspends some labor laws. So it's right now the ball is pretty much within the employer's court, and in a way, it's a good thing. In a way, it's definitely a good thing that because unless uh, people feel that unless people feel that they can take that risk, they can start a venture, and if things don't go well, they can shut it down. Unless that freedom is there, it will be difficult to get people to invest more in growing businesses. So in a way, I think it's good that they have that freedom, but like I said earlier, employers should also be aware that okay, every employee has dependents, they have families, they have housing loans, car loans, the works. And I think one important thing perhaps for every employee in this kind of situation is certainly if you can't make yourself debt free, at least don't add on new debt. Service whatever debt that you have, but don't add on new debt. You don't need a new car. You don't need a bigger house. Just stay where you are. Stay where
That's
you are. If you need to know a good guy to get your car serviced, I know I can help you with that. But yeah, I drive a car which is one of my cars is 15 years old. Another one is about 12 years. Both of them have done 1,20,000 kilometers and they're going fine. So what I'm saying is don't get into new debt. Keep your expenses down. Save whatever you can because times are getting tough.
all right. Thank you so
And they'll
much.
get worse before they get better.
Yeah, see, only my ask was, yeah, I understand, but from an employee perspective or a side of aspect, okay, can governments would not bring in these kind of any amendment or something like, at least especially to kind of survival benefit or something like in these tough situations?
But Havara governments, you know what they are like. Yeah,
Because it is
they are looking.
typically, I mean, I have practically experienced it. That's where I had wanted to put it across. That's it.
No. It's unfortunate, but that's how it is. And see, governments will look at who is going to contribute to my party funds. It will be the companies. It will not be the employees. So, yeah, I mean, there are laws, but the laws are getting weaker and weaker, and nobody is interested in protecting them too much now. So, it's really time for every employee to look out for himself.
Yeah, yeah. All right. Thank you for your insight.
Thank you.
Thanks for interacting, Mr. Damodar. Thank you. Okay, do we have anyone else who would like to speak up? We can probably spend another 2 more minutes before we close.
No, thank you then.
Okay. Yeah. So on that note, I'd like to end the session for today. Actually, there is one, Mr. Rajendra enriching. Okay. All right. Okay. Okay. We're glad, Mr. Rajendra. So on that note, I would like to end today's session. Thank you all for being a wonderful bunch of audience today and having the patience and time to be with us on a Wednesday afternoon. And a big thanks to Mr. Ravi for giving all his excellence today, although absolutely being sick and me bothering multiple number of times. Thank you so much for your time and effort, Mr. Ravi.
Thank you, sir.
It was an absolute pleasure. So on that note, I will end the session for today. And those of you who had shown interest for our solution, we will reach out to you in the next few working days. And I will also be sharing the webinar link once we make some changes to it. And on that note, thank you all. Have a wonderful evening and happy holidays as well. Thank you all. Thank you, Mr. Ravi.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.